Hey guys, what's going on? I finally finished putting together my Langmuir Systems 4x8 CNC plasma table. I did a previous video on unboxing it, and I promised some of the people that I would do an assembly video. I started to do that. I did a time lapse. I caught the first half of it, but the instructions were really well done. I didn't have many problems with it. I saw several people that did assembly videos that didn't have any problem putting it together, but I'm sure that was their second or third CNC plasma that they put together. So this one was my first one, and it did give me a couple hiccups, so I did want to just take some time, take some notes, and share a couple things with you. One part at the end is probably the most important. It says in the instructions that you have to have two people. I didn't have two people. You probably should. Really the only portion that I really struggled with was putting the gantry together. There's a one threaded rod. It runs through the gantry, through the end plates. You tighten down the nuts on the all thread, and once you get it to the nylon washer portion of it, it gets real hard. You gotta take a wrench, put it over the nut, clamp it to the thing, go to the other side, try and torque it down. Everything's moving at the same time. I found that taking it and going ahead and putting it on the rails, then loosening everything back up after you get it square, push everything where it goes, and then tighten everything back down. That gave me the best results. First things first, I would suggest that you go and have the entire manual printed in color. I don't keep a color printer at my house, so I probably should have went to Office Depot and got the whole thing printed. There are some portions of the instructions that they have video on, so you will need a computer or a phone to run back to look at those. They were very well placed, and the videos really helped. Another thing that I had problems with, you could probably see me, there's video after this, but in the time lapse you'll probably see where I struggle with the rails. I really wish Langmuir would tell you if the table is supposed to be in compression or expanded, because the way the legs bolt to the cross rails, there's a little bit of wiggle room. I'm sure that's a tolerance to allow for their outsourced parts to have a little bit of play in them where they'll still work. But mine, when I took my rails and I put the standoffs on it, they didn't line up with the holes. It'd be very helpful if they told you in the instructions, center to center, what the holes are supposed to be. The way I got around it is I just loosened them just a little bit. I stuck them through the holes, put the nut on, and then I went back and tightened them up from the outside of the rails, and that worked fine for me. Another note I wanted to give you guys is I saw a couple people other than me, had a bright idea to wait and put the limit switches on after you put the gantry on the table. You can't. It won't work. There's no way to get your fingers in there. There's no way to get them mounted correctly, because they do go inside of the rail instead of the outside of the rail. Whenever you mount the gantry, you do have to put it on from the back. You can't put it on from the front. If you do put it on from the front, you're going to be hitting the limit switches the whole time, and it doesn't want to go. It's easier just to take it around the back and mount it from there. Right after I got done with that, I went to adjust the eccentric nut that tightens the V wheels on the rails. I had a hell of a time trying to figure out what they were talking about. It's not that bright in my shop, but the stud that the lock nut and the V wheel eccentric nuts on has an Allen key in the center of it. It took me a minute before I could find that. That's another place I got lost. This is probably the most important thing I wanted to tell you guys. It's the water pan. Number one, in the instructions, it tells you to lay out all your pans, sit them next to each other, get them lined up just right, and then throw the 11 screws down in the beginning. I would tell you don't do that. What I would suggest is go ahead. It's going to take an extra 30 minutes, but you can't undo this. So I was so nervous screwing these sheet metal screws down through the frame, through the pan and through the frame, because there's really no going back. So I took all the time I could, I lined everything up, and then when I got done, had still ran out 1/8 of an inch. The back left corner was still 1/8 of an inch off center. I don't think it matters. I don't know if it's that big of a deal. I've only used the machine probably 2 or 3 hours altogether, but I would just prefer to have it squared up 100%. I would suggest that you take the bolts, bolt all the pans together, suck the gap out of them, and then line it up. And then send your 11 screws down in the front, then unbolt them and start caulking. I haven't had any problems with leaks. The only problem I had is I went to add a drain with water in it, because that's smart. And when I was messing with it, and I was trying to get my fittings in, it tightened too much and that O-ring flipped out. And then it started leaking. Then I had to drain my whole table. Another pointer I'll give you, definitely don't just use the plugs they gave you. Go ahead and, whether it's putting a valve on it or whatever, go ahead and get it's a 1/4 inch MPT fitting. What I did is I went from a 1/4 inch MPT to a 1/4 inch to 3/4 reducer into a 3/4 inch pipe to shark bite, down into a shark bite 90-degree 3/4 pex, over to the other one. The other one is the same setup, coming down and at 90 degrees into a T, shark bite T. There's a valve, and then at the end there's a 3/4 inch pex to 3/4 inch pipe fitting, and then there's a 3/4 to 3/4 garden hose adapter, so I could put my garden hose on it and stretch it out my door if I need to drain the table, or my water is hooked up back there in the corner. I can hook it up to the water, turn the water on, to open the valve, and slowly fill the table. Another thing that I had a huge problem with, the pans in the corner. I wish I had gotten a picture of it, but it looked like there was a shim added or welded. I don't know if when they got them in, the holes were off center, or they had too much play in them, or what the deal was, but the bolts that they sent would not span the gap. Even after I already had the pans in compression, I had the hardest time trying to get those nuts on. I would highly suggest getting 24, number 10, 32, 1032 by 1/2 inch machine screws. You already have the nuts. That'll cover all the corners spots. That was such a goat rope for me to try and get all that together while the caulk's drying. But like I said, I've had no problems with the caulk. I will tell you that whenever you're done putting your table together, go back and take the rest of the caulk and go around all the screw heads and go up the edge of the pans. There's a big gap at the top where they meet when they're flush. You know, make sure you get it all the way to the top so you can fill your table all the way up, because the slats are kind of tall. Like, the slats are almost a good 1/4 inch proud of the water pan. I don't like that. I'll probably use them for a while and then end up either cutting them down or just changing them out. All the wiring, after the video stops, most of what's left to do is all the wiring and hooking that up. I didn't really have any problems with that. It was all really straightforward. Did my cable management. It tells you how to do it well in the instructions. Follow all those. The only thing I really don't like about the cable management is I bought the CMPC cable for the Hypotherm, because I have the Hypotherm 45 XP, and the cable's short. Like, I can't really get my plasma as far away from the table as I'd like. So I ended up sticking it under the table because I haven't had any leaks. So I think that's probably the driest place that I can reach. So I got that routed under there. Another thing, it would be great if all the electronics were in an enclosure. I think I'm eventually gonna build an enclosure, just a box about 4 inches thick, make it where I can mount the touch screen to the front of it, wire up all my electricity inside, run my electricity down through the arm and out of the way. I went to Walmart and I got a 3-headed extension cord, outdoor extension cord, and I have that mounted right underneath the pedestal and then routed down under the pedestal and under the machine over the outlet, and that's been working really good. I got everything all tied up and looking tidy. The only other really big hiccup is I ordered a Hypertherm 45XP plasma with the 25-foot machine torch. Nowhere in the instructions does it tell you that there's a safety switch right up here. Even when you look up the error code for why your torch isn't working, it doesn't say it anywhere. The only place I found it was in the manual underneath disassembling the torch if you needed to disassemble the machine torch to feed it through a cable tray. That's the only place I found it. Once I clicked that, I was cooking. So anyways, I was probably ready 3 or 4 days ago, and I've been spending the last 3 to 4 days just learning about sheet cam and fire control and trying to get my design process down. Like I've said, I've used CNC before, so I'm using Lightburn, V-Carve, and Inkscape to draw my vectors. And I'm really having a lot of luck with Lightburn as far as having it not put extra stuff into the vector. Exporting it to sheet cam, doing my tool pass. If you guys are interested, if any of y'all don't already know Plasma CNC and you want me to make a short video on how to do that, I could do that. Probably teach you how to make a part, make a tool pass, and cut it inside of 30 minutes. It just was a really steep learning curve for me to figure it all out by myself. Anyways, that's all I had. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll see if I can get them answered. And then I'm gonna roll the video of me putting this thing together. See you later.
you.